Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Leadership for the Now. My name is Florin Lungu, and so delighted to be back with you and my teaching partner, Alena Ipanova. Welcome, Alena.
Hello, Florin. Thank you so much for your warm welcoming and really happy to be back after summer break.
Absolutely. We're so excited to be back with you for another season. So, this autumn, we thought to start with a topic that we think is relevant for you, especially if you're in the Nordic countries here. That many of us are back from vacation, right? So some of us had a longer vacation in Scandinavia. That's something that it's usual for people to have a longer vacation. So now we're looking at how can we actually now get back into the work mindset, but also maybe how can we take some moments and look at how can we do things a little bit better than we done in the first eight months of the year. So I'm excited about that, Alena, and I look forward to kind of dive into the subject.
Yes, Florin, it's a really relevant topic. And besides people getting back to work, many people also start new jobs at this period of time. So it's actually very relevant to discuss how as a leader you can provide better support for your people and how as a team member, as an employee, you can actually check in with your manager to see if your goals are relevant and how to basically move forward because we still have 4 months left until the end of the year. So there might be some challenges in that and also exciting opportunities. So to start with, Florin, I wonder, what do you find the most challenging for you actually to get back to work after summer break? Would you share?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's getting back to the sleep schedule. Like when I was off, right? When I was off, I used to, stay up later. Although we have a 1 year old in our family, and he kind of makes our schedule. But then after he goes to sleep, then I tend to, stay on the computer or on the phone or do something, and that affected my sleep. And so if I would have been, you know, in the work mindset, I was not effective the first part of the morning. So I think for me that was one of the biggest challenges, and I also see one of the things that I see happen. And this year I was intentional about not doing that, was to book meetings or book work right after I restarted. I realized there is kind of a ramp up time, and I also see that. So when I was in the corporate world, I saw there was maybe the first week after vacation, you don't remember your password, right? You don't even remember your password to open your computer. So you need some time to actually, I say, replace some of the vacation habits and vacation rituals to your work rituals. And we also have to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of the fact that some people are looking forward to coming to returning to office or restarting work, but some would still feel, well, I think it was a short vacation. So I think it's a complex situation. It's not easy, but for me it was making sure that I don't book myself, and I'm not too optimistic on what I can do in the first week after restarting, and that my focus should be to get back on my sleep schedule and my work schedule, so I can actually, when I really get into the work, then I'm effective. The hours that I plan to work, I'm effective. I'm not dragging myself because of something that I've done the evening before. What about you,
Mm-hmm.
Alena?
Oh, actually, it's a different, not to say different story for me. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Definitely, sleeping is very important, and I think I'm getting back to that as well, and launching a new practice for myself. As my mom is visiting, and I can actually put kids to sleep, and I can take a walk later in the evening, and then I keep my hours. It really helps me to have a walk and then shower and sleep. Really good for the balance, concentration. It really works magic. And then it's very interesting because I'm working as a consultant, and for us, taking vacation, it might be quite challenging in terms of totally switching off for 1 month, for instance. So I usually combine things. I might do some work and some projects and then take a break and mix and match. So it's not like I take a very long period. But actually, this summer I took a slightly longer period when I just worked on some creative tasks in relation to my business, but I focused more on learning Spanish, for example, like doing something different or cooking some food with my kids. So just to diversify my activities, which also loaded me with lots of energy. So that was
Absolutely.
uh, my takeaway that I would really like to keep even now when we are transitioning back to work, just to keep those moments and
Yeah,
continue with that.
that's so good, and thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of one thing that I share with leaders when we discuss about how to get people back into the work mindset or the office mindset. And I think one of the things that we don't do enough is we don't necessarily learn from the things we've done during that time off. So, for example, you've done things, you
Mhm.
had experiences with your family, with your kids, and everyone has had experiences, right? They had things they've done, they travel places, and there are a lot of lessons that we could learn from those. And I feel it's a really good opportunity on one side to learn about people's passions and hobbies, but as well as learn some things that we could actually implement at work. So one of the team activities to re-engage the team would be to have a time where everyone shares, something that they've done during the vacation and one thing that they learned from that experience. I think this will be a really good team bonding activity, and it gives the leader the insight that they need about what motivates people. Many times I get this
Mhm.
question of Florin, but I don't know what my people want. Well, if you listen to what they share when they get back to office after vacation, you'll find out. They'll tell you. They'll tell you what's important to them. They'll tell you they spend time with the family, or they travel, or they experience things, or they learn, or they study. They learn new language, which tells me that these things are important to you. So I think this is something that we could I really believe that we could share those learnings in a team setup, and everyone could benefit from it, but also make it a way for us to replace some of the time we had with our family now with getting back into spending time with our colleagues.
Yeah, these are very powerful practices that you're sharing. And I think, Florin, you're tapping into something very important that many of us often forget when we get back to something, whether we are excited or we are loaded with work. It's just getting back to doing things. And as you mentioned in one of our chats before, that sometimes you come back to work and you open your inbox and you already have so many things there that you don't know where to start. So the feeling of overwhelm. So here I really appreciate you sharing this practice that taking maybe the first week a little bit easier so that you actually give yourself time to transition to this work mode, and it saves you like lots of energy and also your like mental well-being in a way. And here I wonder, in your practice, what would you recommend as you're coaching leaders? What would you recommend leaders to start with when they started their work and there are so many things to do? Should they rush into like delegating, organizing things, or should they do something different maybe? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, one thing that I learned, and this is a common practice with my clients that I coach one on one. I coach leaders and executives, and this is not necessarily a set session in our coaching plan, but I usually use the first session we have after the summer break as a reflection and planning session. One of the things that I have, and I'm very strict about that in my agenda, I block 2 hours in on Monday morning. So So I drop Adam and I get back to the office, and so between 9 and 11 you cannot book me. You know, I share my calendar with my clients, but those slots are always booked because it says plan my week. So what I'm doing is
Mm-hmm.
actually I'm looking at what did I do last week or in the last couple of weeks, you know, what worked, what didn't work, what did I maybe achieve or I'm behind with. So I'm kind of taking the moment to assess how is it going and plan my time for the week, because if I don't plan my important activities in my schedule, if someone asks me, Florin, can you talk? And I say, well, I have some slots, and I give the slots that I have available. But if I booked my important things before, then I will have less available spots, and it means that I'm more likely to do what I know it's important for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to lead leaders through this exercise where we kind of sit and say, okay, now it's the beginning of September, almost, like, you know, in 2 days will be September. Now, you know, how did it go for you for the last 8 months? What are some wins? What are some challenges you faced and you overcome? And what are some lessons you can take from there? And then now, as you look forward to the last quarter of this year, then what would you try to achieve? Like if we sit on our first session of 2024, or if we, even if we have coffee, right? We meet, have coffee, or we have a virtual coffee. What would you like to tell me that it happened in this last quarter to make it one of the best quarters you ever had? And this actually changes focus from the challenges that they have in front of them to a more longer term kind of focus. And I think this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I think your question kind of was leading me to the answer, because you said, should we get into doing things or should we maybe do something different? And I think you also have noticed this, right, with yourself and
Yeah.
your clients, right? So it's very easy for us to just say, oh, I I returned to office like 1 week after my colleagues, and I already have my inbox is full, and I'm not able to focus on anything for the future until my I clean my inbox. Well, that's unrealistic. You never clean your inbox. There are always going to be new emails coming in. So
Yeah.
I think the best use of our time, especially in the first kind of week after you're back, when it's always good to ground ourselves. Look at what did we do, where are we, where do we want to go, and just kind of ground and say, okay, now if I want to call this a successful year, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And that actually allows us to prioritize the important things. And then this is something
Mm-hmm.
that I believe we need to recommunicate to our team members. Like if I just expand a little bit more on this, I think as leaders, first of all, it's our responsibility to stop, reflect, and then plan for the remaining of the year. But also, it's our responsibility to share this vision with our team, because we cannot just expect that people know what we discussed back in May. That's not fresh for them. We need refreshing. And so sometimes priorities have changed. So, for example, if there was any major event or major change or something that happened during the summer, and priorities have shifted, they don't know. So I think practice number one, spend time to reflect and then plan. And practice number two, make sure that you share this with your team and they know their priorities. I think that's, you know, two things that um, we should do as we get back from vacation or
Mm-hmm.
after any change or any break.
Yeah, very valuable input here. And while you were speaking, uh, it brought me to the thoughts about how we actually plan our time. And it's one of the strategies that I started applying for myself, inspired by the book of Nir Ayal. He's speaking about creating time for traction. So that, because very often we might say, oh, I've got so many emails, it distracted me, I feel distracted. And then if you ask, okay, what are you distracted from? And
Mm-hmm.
then, okay, what's that? So for that, we need to create time for traction, exactly as you mentioned in this practice of blocking the time for yourself when you commit to doing specific things which you find of value, and then building the rest of the schedule around that. So I find it very powerful. And generally, I have this association that when we get back from summer to work mode, to autumn, it's like a spring in terms of, you know, the work seasons. We can say exactly what you mentioned about evaluation and re-evaluation. And as far as you touched upon the perspective of a leader, I would like to touch upon the perspective of a team member. So it's not about if you are a team member, it's not about expecting that everything will be organized and set up by your manager, but also it's your own initiative and drive. You need to pause and reflect on what is relevant. And this time, I think, is very good time to plan your further career development, or how you create work-life balance, because we all have different ambitions at work. So generally, this time is for us to align and realign with our goals. Is it still relevant? And to create more clarity about what do I want from these 4 months for myself, to align professional vision, like team vision, company vision, whatever projects we work with also our personal ambitions. How do we like to develop professionally, personally? So as soon as we get this clarity, it becomes so much easier to choose where we put our energy, where and also to see the tasks coming from backlog or the tasks delegated to us. We will be able to filter them much better, saying that, okay, this is not something that I'm motivated to do. Can we tweak it somehow? Or this is not something that brings me to the goals that I realigned. And generally, it's a good time to also initiate a conversation with the manager if you feel that the goals that you've been working on before are shifted. They're not as relevant as they seem to be. So both perspectives should be taken. So it's not only responsibility of a manager, but also our individual responsibility. What
Yeah,
are your thoughts
I
about that,
so
Florin?
no, I so agree with that, because especially in the Scandinavian work culture, where there is this kind of hands-off leadership style. Like if you would look at other cultures, and you're much better than me in intercultural, you know, aspect of work. In some other cultures, maybe we would expect that to come from our manager or from our leader. But
Mm,
especially in the Scandinavian landscape, I feel that there is a lot of freedom. So I give an example of when I was in the automotive industry, and my role was project leader. And I think we were 8 or 9 colleagues with the same title and the same responsibility, but we were working on different areas and leading different projects. And would you say, well, okay, you're in a company, Florin, it's a multinational company, like you probably have a framework, you cannot do whatever you want. But what I have found is that each of us were doing the role differently, because some of us were more interested into the technical part, meaning that when there was a technical issue, they wanted to go into the technical aspects. The bottom line, they will pick up the tools and go and see what's wrong with the car. Well, while for me, I was not very interested in that. I was more interested into the dynamic around, the project team and the people. So when there was a presentation to be held, when there was something that was more high level in communication and leadership, I was interested in taking that. So I have found that even within a role, a set role, you still have a lot of freedom, especially in Scandinavia, to kind of define how you do the role, which means that uh, on one side is good because you have a lot of flexibility of how to do it, so you can then set your own priorities, set your own, or kind of decide what projects you want to work on. But on at the same time, if you don't have clarity for yourself what you want, and from your leader what's expected of you, that could be challenging for some. Some might say, well, I
mm,
don't know, that's why you're the leader, I expect you to do that. But you're making such a good point. We cannot just be passive. We cannot just wait and for something to be given to us. And although we call this leadership for the now, it doesn't. You don't have to be a leader to get value from this show, or you don't have to be a leader to apply these tips. So I think you're making such a good point there, because this is so
Yeah.
valuable for everyone.
You don't have to be a leader on a formal position, because every one of us is a leader, I believe, whether at home or in any context. We can take on different roles, so it's not limited to that, right? You can be a leader of your life in any circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any tips for leaders like us, either now getting back to work, or planning for the quarter? Maybe one or two things that you could pass on to them.
Yeah, I think the most important and the red line for me in the whole thing is like take it as a spring period and reflect, evaluate. I think we mentioned it several times, but I really want to emphasize that. And if this like 1, 2 things that you could do, I would actually use your practice here, blocking the time for traction, the time for yourself. Evaluating, re-evaluating, and aligning your goals as well as a leader. What's your goal with the team? Discuss with the team as well. What's their vision? Because very often I work with technical teams a lot, and very often they say, Aliana, we don't have time for that. We need to do this and that. But actually taking time for it in the beginning can save you so much like friction, stress, conflicts afterwards. So investing this time is very important. And one more thing I would add here is to making it clear, not only for yourself, but for people around you. What is that you personally want as well? So it's not just about uh, professional goals, because in general, like Swedish culture is very much task oriented. So you have tasks and you have processes, even though people are taken very well into consideration, but it's just our attitude to that dividing personal and professional. So maybe sharing how through my professional tasks I want to grow as a person, how I want to develop. Do I have resources for that within my team, within my company? And maybe for a leader also to make it clear what kind of resources we have to support people's growth and development, so that they could elevate in what they do and also in how they actually interact with others. So that would be my take on that.
Absolutely,
Anything
so
else
good.
you can add to that? As I
Yeah,
think we wrap up our conversation, and any final thoughts?
yeah. I think one final thought I would like to add is this is a moment for the leader, and even you as individual on the team, to check in with your colleagues, and check in with yourself, and check in with the leader. What I mean by that is, we cannot just assume that what worked for you in the first part of the year, it will work now. Um, we want to know as leaders what has happened in our people's lives. I say, a good tailor doesn't rely on all measurements. Every time you see the tailor takes new measurements, because maybe you gain some weight, maybe you exercise and you lose some weight. So they don't rely on all measurements. And I believe as leaders, we have to be very good tailors. We should not rely on all measurements. We should check in with our team and kind of understand if someone, for example, had a personal goal to, let's say, work less hours. Let's say they were 80% before the summit. We cannot just assume that they want to continue that, or that it's still working for them. So we want to take this time right now to check in and say, hey, how is it going? What has changed in your life? This is what we discussed at the beginning of the year. Is this still relevant to you? Right? This is
Mhm.
how we've done it up until the vacation time. What do you want for the quarter, or for next, until, let's say, until the next vacation? So I think this is a moment that we should not miss to check in, because we might be doing this at the after the New Year's Eve and the Christmas vacation, but I think this is even more important right now to do, because here's what I know. Usually we have yearly goals in corporations. In the people that I work with, they usually have a yearly goal, meaning that they have a goal for 2023 that they will measure at the end of the year. Now you still have 4 months to actually correct the course. So if you set a goal at the beginning of the year and maybe you're not on track, or maybe circumstances have changed, your life circumstances have changed, you have a chance now to realign and maybe adjust that goal, so then you can actually meet it at the end of the year. If you do that after the vacation, if you do that in January, you say, well, okay, 2023 is behind us. Now let's see what we can do for 2024. So I'll say it's too late, but we can do that now. So if I would be a leader, that's what I would do. I would check in with my team and make sure that if we have some goals, they are still relevant, and what can we do to actually stay on track and meet them. I think that's what I would do.
Great. I love this tailoring metaphor that you used, and continuous check-in, so we don't have to wait until the next scheduled developmental talk. We can initiate those informal conversations basically at any
Absolutely.
time, and this is a good time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I just had a client this morning, and she was sharing with me that one more difficult employee kind of avoids the developmental talks. And I said, well, just have some impromptu conversations. You're gonna have a chance to discuss. So I completely agree with you. You don't have to wait until your scheduled meetings. Check in more often and check in more, let's say, informally. Because also, I think you're gonna find different things when you just have a coffee with a colleague rather than have a formal meeting, a formal conversation when they know there are some stakes in the game. So yeah, I'll
Okay.
close with this one because I think we can
This is a
continue.
call to action. Yes, this is a call to action, and we are on the top of our time. And yeah, that was really great having a conversation with you, Florin. And I hope that we managed to inspire people to actually just check in with each other and check in with themselves if what they want or what they wanted in the beginning of the year is still relevant, how they can readjust.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure being back, and we look forward to the next episode. So until then, stay safe, and if there's something we can help you with, don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to do it. All right, take
Thank
care,
you. Bye
everyone.
bye.
See you next time. Bye bye.